Welcome to Wiretapped Truths with Jesse Perez, Mr. Wiretapped Truths himself, Leland, and Mr. Jack, who's Jack is a stand-up comedian, by the way. That if he's gonna get us in for free backstage and meet like Kevin Hart and stuff when he blows up. So,
Oh yeah,
uh,
Dave
you know,
Chappelle, Bill Burr, John Mulaney, all those guys.
so
They're
whenever,
gonna open for me, actually.
yeah, I'm in New York too, so I might have to try to check you out, Jack. But so this show is a wire recap episode by episode, and we're picking up on stuff that after seeing it 1,000 times we haven't even noticed, which is another great thing about the wire is like no matter how many times you see it, something always something new. Leland brought up uh Perlman and Daniels flirting in episode 2. You know, um, it's funny, and I'll bring it up later on the show. But it's every time there's a line in the wire, you have to pay attention to it because it might come back later on in the show. So yeah, man, we've done 3 episodes so far. Um, we had a co-host for a third of the show last time, Lynn. Shout out to Lynn. And I appreciate you guys for watching us and continuing to watch us. And as we continue to get a little fan base for this show, we're going to keep bringing you this content and try to bring you more content on top of that. So go ahead, guys. Leland.
My name is Leland Edmond, co-host here at Wiretap Truth with Jesse and Jack. Just glad to be here. This is episode 4. We're going to continue to give you all a great product. It's something that 3 of us enjoy talking about. I mean, it's not really, an issue for us to provide you all this content. We just want feedback and kind of for the fans to let us know like you all are appreciating what we're putting out, and any feedback you all can give us, we'd be greatly appreciated. So 4th episode, glad to be here with my team, and we hope to give you all another great episode, greatest wire podcast of all time.
What's up, guys? I am Jack Simmons. Uh, Again, this is the greatest wire podcast of all time. Really enjoying it so far. I think we got a good rapport, and yeah, it's good to rewatch the show too because it's been a couple of years, and I feel like almost every couple of years I kind of rewatch it. And I there's always somebody also like you want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
while you rewatch something or while you're watching it, but a lot of times like one of your friends isn't watching that thing, so they're not going to be as like enthusiastic. So it's good to do that with people that are like on the same page, and to have it as a creative outlet that could grow into something huge is really awesome. So yeah, I'm really excited, and we are here for episode 4 of season 1.
Episode 4, season 1. All right, Jack. You want to give us the title, the opening, and the opening quote, and the opening scene?
Yes, sir. So the opening title of the episode is Old Cases.
Okay.
Cases, kind of what they dive into. But also kind of as a theme throughout the episode, as we see about Lester talking about old cases, about Bunk and McNulty working backwards on old cases. Um, they kind of have hit a wall from the last episode with their pointless raid that kind of went nowhere. So they figured, what do we do now? How do we get the Barksdale crew going? And that's kind of how they investigate the matter, is going through these old cases that from a year ago that they turned into whodunits because the police department lacked like the resources or the efficacy in terms of handling it. And the quote is thin line between heaven and here. Uh,
Bubbles.
Bubbles, yeah.
In line between heaven
Really
and
poetic scene that we'll get into later about class and identity and privilege that kind of this show really explores for like the first time. Um, so yeah, let's go. Um, First scene, kind of it's funny. It's a funny cold open because it's not something serious. It's actually like a moment of levity that everyone can enjoy. It's a real character moment where Herc is trying to put take a couch, no, a desk
Yes.
inside the office, right? And he can't do that, and he's like, "I need help," and Carver comes around and tries to help him out,
Hmm.
and then they get Presbalewski and Daniels and McNulty kind of come in trying to push it in, and nobody's figuring out how to do that. They're like, what if we turn it sideways? What can we do to do this? And they all eventually give up, and they say like, wow, Herc says we're never gonna get this desk in, and they're like, in, like,
Yeah.
you didn't specify how you wanted this desk. They all assume that he wanted it out. And it's a great Herc moment because it just shows he's like a dumbass, and they all kind of, it's like an episode of it's like a sitcom almost. It's very
Yeah.
fun. Yeah,
But there's more happening here too. The Freeman knows. In
Right.
mm.
my opinion.
I took that note down too. Like I was
Yeah.
gonna ask that to you all.
Yeah, Freeman's onto it. He's just sitting back enjoying the show, eating
Yeah,
popcorn. He's like, kid. He's like, when are these fools gonna figure it out?
right.
So and you know, I maybe reading a little too much into it, but it's an example of if you're not on the same page, the job is not going to get done.
It's a
Yeah.
Right.
great point. Yeah,
So so I thought it was a little deeper than just a little funny moment. I mean, it was a funny moment, but
Yeah.
that's
But
a
it,
good
it, it
point.
is. It definitely is a message between it. I mean, for sure. And it's kind of like, Herc, why were you trying to put the desk in there that way? Like, what? Why did you think that was the best way to try to get that desk in there? And I love it when Carver says to him, "Unfucking believable." Just the use of the F word in this episode. We're going to explore it, but just that little word right there, that little play on the words, like unfucking believable. Like,
yeah.
I love that scene. It's one of the. It
Oh yeah.
shows that The Wire can give you a really strong comedic moment that has a deeper meaning, but it's definitely laugh out loud funny because I love that scene. Like
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the
I
best
love
intros
it.
for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely has like a deeper meaning too, and it's a real character moment because, like you said, you see Lester, and that's kind of the way he is, right? He watches from behind. He's patient. He takes his time. Um, McNulty tries to help, right? He sees a problem. He tries to fix it. Herc and Carver are on the same wavelength. Daniels says like, "This is embarrassing." Like he looks down on them
Yeah,
ultimately, like, but is trying to help. Whereas Herc just lacks common sense. Because, like, I've fit in desks into my room before. I have a huge desk, and you turn it like on a diagonal level
to
so
get it
that
through the doorway.
right, so it doesn't exactly scratch in. Like you need to have it on an angle so that it can fit, or turn it standing up. But this fucking idiot turns it completely sideways, getting it completely stuck. It shows he just lacks common sense. He doesn't even understand how to move furniture into a room properly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great point, Jesse. It's like a great character moment where it shows each of the characters and how they would try to solve a problem like that,
Sure.
in that little scene. Wallace is showing you like how they would react to it, and just showing like, yeah, how Herc doesn't understand anything. um, so yeah, they say unfucking believable. Then so that's how the episode starts. Um, and then thin line between heaven and here. Um,
Um,
that's the opening scroll, and then we kind of get to the scene in court old cases, right? That's how it starts. So Greg's is going through old cases. They're trying to pick up somebody that's a lower level Barksdale crew member who got hit with a 1-to-1 robbery, just of robbing bubbles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, this guy hasn't. So they're basically trying to get the DA to like uh hit the maximum penalty. They're Greg's is talking to a prosecutor, and she's like, why don't you give this guy like the maximum penalty?
Yeah.
Um, so that way, because we're trying to use this guy to get information about um uh
Boxer.
Barksdale, right? And so even though it's a 1-to-1 robbery, McNulty is like, well, you have a huge sheet here, and they're using the game, right? They're like, well, if you give us information about uh Barksdale, we're not gonna, we might be able to lower your sentence.
Yeah.
It, and the guy is he's smart. He realizes, he's like, I'm just gonna take the years in
Yeah.
jail.
Yeah, which seems like a common thing with when they ask somebody, well, unless you could rat out Avon, they'll be like, nah,
Right.
that's yeah.
Yeah, like I'm fine. I'll just take the years. I got some questions though. So they said that the hand to hand with Bubbles led to an arrest. So shouldn't that have tipped off somebody that Bubbles might be a snitch? Maybe if the hand to hand with Bubbles led to an arrest, or not necessarily.
No, because they don't know what he's getting arrested for. People get
Right.
arrested down there all the time. So
Yeah.
And then
Or-
she also said continuing investigation. So like when she said that to him, couldn't he have, I guess, told somebody in the Barksdale crew, like, hey, look, we're now part of an investigation? Or is that, I guess, not that big a deal? Because when Orlando got locked up, he definitely called somebody and was like, hey, look, Orlando's here courtside with me, kind of thing. Like, so when they told him he was part of an investigation,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe like shouldn't that have been a tip to somebody in the crew? Like, hey, look, like
or something should have clicked off, but
they about to give me 5 years just to let you know. Like,
I could also see it as just somebody not really paying attention to the wording and them down there and just being like, "Yo, I'm going to jail for robbing bubbles." Yeah,
I mean, at the same time, these guys aren't infallible, right? They make mistakes. That's kind of, eventually somebody slips up.
And they're not all in the intelligence level that Avon and String is, so like, continuing investigation. What's that?
And he's low level too. It's not like
that's what I mean. Like he's, so I don't think,
I think it's also this guy's ego. Like Avon has such this ego where they think because they've been able to get away with this for so long, eventually start to slip up, right? You get cocky, you start to lower your guard, you start to get careless. And that's kind of what makes like Freamon such an effective police officer, is because he's constantly watching, just waiting for his moment. And when you're like quiet, that's why like it shows how Greg's, McNulty, like Freamon, they're such good at what they do because they're quiet, so that they know that if we make a big scene, they'll tip them off. Like what they did the last episode, that was kind of the whole showing the different types of policing. If we do like the big macho thing of like doing a big drug raid, that's going to tip them off.
Sure.
But if you wait just long enough, eventually, I think it's just human nature. Eventually, people slip up after a while. They make one mistake and then it just fucking costs them like this. But this guy, I always wondered, because we've never seen him before, right? This is the first time we've seen him. So yeah, that was interesting to me, how it's like they just took this random guy. I wonder, because like, and we don't actually see him again. Also, it's just meant to be like some guy that, well, they tried. And
when Orlando gets arrested, he's the one that calls the crew, or he calls somebody, and he's like, hey, guess who's down here at county with me? Orlando. That's the only other time we see him in the show. But that's him too.
Oh, that's him, right?
Yeah, that's him.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Oh yeah. So then, see, that's what I mean. He does. We do see him again in the future.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm doing an episode a week,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like.
No, Jesse. He told me the other day when we chopped it up when we talked. He's like, "Man, I'm on season 2. I couldn't help it." You know.
Went crazy.
It's hard. It's addictive, man. It is.
Yeah.
It's like it's really tough to like just stop after one episode because it keeps you going. You're like, fuck, I gotta. Even though you know what happens, you're just like,
Yeah.
well, now I gotta watch it again.
Yeah, yeah.
And on top of that, like one of my friends told me she wants to start it, so now I'm gonna like start it again. You
Yeah,
know.
you gotta watch it with her.
Right.
I love,
Exactly.
I love the experience of putting somebody onto the wire, especially if they take to it. That's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if it's their first time to
Yeah,
watching it too, because it's seeing it almost like through their
yeah,
perspective
yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
time. You know. That's always good. And yeah, it's funny this look that the guy gives McNulty and Greg's, especially Greg's, when he sees like they're trying for like the full 5 years for this 1-to-1. He's just like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Um, he knows that like they want something out of it. Like they're like, "There's no way this guy just cares that much about this guy Bubbles to do that."
Mm.
Um, And yeah, it shows, what cops are willing to, these guys are willing to do. They're willing to press their luck against, they're willing to use the full force to get what they need, and if they can't get hand to hands, they might as well try to flip people.
Right.
Oh yeah, so the next scene is Polk and Mahone, and Polk is in the hospital, right? He's
Mahomes in the hospital.
Mahone's in the hospital. Sorry, I get them mixed up. Mahone's in the hospital because he got punched by Bodie in the last episode, and they're all celebrating, drinking like vodka in a Dixie cup. Like it's just, um, and they Daniels comes in and they're like, "Hey, come celebrate." He's like, he realizes this is his ticket out of there. That he's gonna get like a full pension, full ride, workers' compensation because you get attacked on the job. Even though listen, he just got like punched in the face once
Mhm.
by a 16-year-old kid. You know.
Yeah. So he saw his way out, right? And then, he's going down to Florida to open up like a blockbuster type thing. I forgot what he's
Yeah.
opening with his brother-in-law. And so he's like, and then Polk's like, "Man, I'm gonna be all by myself," and he's like, "I need," he's like, so he tells Polk, "Hey, Dad, throw yourself down the steps, get work." And this is how I know one person who got I mean, I get know one person who got hurt playing basketball and then they got arrested the pension. There's something that happens. You get injured outside the job. You try to get injured on the job, and
Mhm.
all. I mean, this is the life of a police officer, no doubt. So very believable scene here where he's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm out of here early." So
And he just openly admits to Daniels, "I'm about to commit, tax evasion." When
Right.
he
Yes.
says,
Yeah.
yeah,
"Hey, I'm not claiming on my taxes or nothing. You think I'm stupid?" I mean, I guess Daniel's not gonna say anything. He got his own dirt, but I don't
yeah,
know if I'd just be, throwing that around in the hospital, around the lieutenant. But
yeah,
He's so old. He doesn't give a shit at this
yeah,
point. He's just like, what do I have to
whatever. I'm
lose?
out.
yeah.
Fucking. What
You
are you
know,
gonna tell on me, Daniels?
Right,
Like.
right.
it could be, yeah, it could be that. It could be like, he knows the code of blue is not gonna tell on him on that. Also, he's probably not the brightest,
eh.
to go say that.
Or maybe words around that Daniels also, because remember he committed fraud.
Yeah,
So
maybe,
maybe the words
maybe,
around that he knows,
maybe.
like, hey, what are you gonna do about it? You have this other information about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's just funny, like how happy he is. It makes me think. I don't know if you guys saw like the movie Office Space, but
Hmm.
it reminds me of like when that guy gets in that serious car accident and he's all stitched up. He's like, "I'm the luckiest man there is," because
Hmm.
he's able to get a full ride now.
Yeah,
But it's
Yeah.
also funny because he's in Blockbuster, and he's like, "I'm gonna make so much money these next few years."
I
Like
know.
he's at a video game store. It'd be funny if this was like in 2007, and he said that, and then like
Yeah,
3 years
nah.
later, we show him like losing all of his money.
Somebody tell him, well, that's not really the best investment nowadays.
Yeah, now you're
But
gonna
they
go
call
under.
Netflix is bubbling.
Right. It's like him saying like, "Yeah, I'm getting a job at Radio Shack, and
Right.
we'll see what happens now." Um, but yeah, so Daniel's very serious, and a little moment I noticed too, like he hands Daniels the cup of vodka, right? But Daniels doesn't drink it; he just
Yeah,
sort of
he just
acts.
holds it. Yeah.
Hmm.
It just shows like he's like all business. You know, he's like, "I want to celebrate with you guys." Also, he
Yeah,
doesn't consider them like he doesn't respect them because they're not really respectable people. They're
yeah.
kind of scumbag cops that are blatantly just using the system, using wasting taxpayer dollars to just fart around and drink all day.
On the clock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He also when Daniels and McNulty sat down to talk about Daniels dating Pearlman and stuff. He didn't really drink with McNulty either. Like I think they had a beer, but
Mm-hmm.
Daniels didn't finish his beer either.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good point. I think Daniels is just not really a drinker neither.
Yeah, it's in light moderation. Like it's
Right.
we rarely see him drink. I don't think he finished the beer, and then he was like, you want to get up out of here, and McNulty
Mhm.
was like, yeah, I get out of here in a second. And then
Yeah.
Daniels leaves, and McNulty finishes. And he's like, let me get another one, and put a beer by it. Okay,
Yeah,
give me
yeah,
some more. So it was just, I don't think
yeah.
Daniels is just a big drinker at all.
That's the order in the bar. If you go to the bar a lot, a shot in a beer. Shot in a beer.
Oh yeah, especially in the city, get that combination.
Yeah.
Um, but McNulty, yeah, it shows the different McNulty and Bunk are functioning alcoholics, and the actor, by the way, we'll get into it in later episodes when you see him drunk. But just the way he acts drunk, I always appreciate too. It's
Oh,
just very,
Jimmy? Hell yeah.
very
Yeah.
realistic.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
the way he's stumbling around and blinking and slurring his
yeah.
words. It's very
And
like,
but just coherent enough. It's not
yeah,
like he's not. It's not like we don't understand him. It's like
we know what he wants. He can barely control himself. And we see so Mahone is the one who's in the hospital, but Polk is the somewhat younger guy, or the one with the mustache, and he kind of feels left out because he's like, man, I wish I was getting off the case.
yeah,
Oh, and it's just these guys are like two of my least favorite characters because they're not like outwardly abusive like Officer Walker or Colicchio, but they're just like huge fucking dirtbags because again they don't care about their jobs. They're just
Yeah,
waiting to collect their pension.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Well, you got to remember, the detail they were given was bottom of the barrel, supposedly. And they got
hmm,
lucky with a few, so they have to show what they were actually supposed to get.
right. Yeah, they were just kind of shipped off because nobody needed them or
yeah,
wanted them really. Um, and even they show up later on in the show and we see what happens to them. But it just shows that some cops they're not even. It's not even like they're bad cops. It's like they don't give a shit,
Yeah.
which it just as bad in its own way. Um,
What's the next scene?
so the next scene, uh, after we see that uh, the in the criminal that robbed Bubbles basically says, "No, I'm not. I'm just gonna take the years." We go back to the prison, um, juvenile detention scene. We see Bodie waking up, and he's all bruised. He's got his ass kicked by all those cops in the previous episode, and really great editing and camera work in this episode because it immediately shows like them hitting a dead end and then seeing him waking up, and he's talking to that cop that we see later on in the show. He's basically saying like, "Yep, you're in here with people from Atlantic City," and
Yeah,
he kind of looks around and he sees all these people looking at him, and they're looking like, "You're dead meat,"
yeah,
and he's like, "Shit, I got to get out of here," and
thanks.
he pulls a great stunt where he just
Yeah, yeah.
pretends to be a janitor, and
Yeah.
he does it very subtly in a way. He even sees like a security guard talking up to a receptionist, and it's like if you just play it off naturally, you don't make a big scene. He's like, "Fucking, I'm just gonna walk out of here."
Yeah.
That's
Also, very, very believable too, right?
yeah.
Like
Nobody expects a guy's gonna do that. You know what I mean? They don't expect like somebody's gonna try to pull a stunt like that. So it's like if you just do it very nonchalant, you know.
yeah, and
you just-
it shows you it shows you the start of Bodhi outsmarting law enforcement.
Mhm.
Smart ass pun.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah, this is
he's
a
a
real
smart
Bodhi
ass pun.
episode.
smart
Yeah.
ass punk. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Smart as yeah. It's showing how he's able to like solve problems in a way.
Yeah.
This is kind of the first episode we see Bodhi on his own. And we even see his mom in this episode later on.
His grandma.
His grandma, right? Um, yeah, this is kind of where he starts to develop as a character, other than the guy that works for D'Angelo. He becomes his own person. Um, so the next scene is Herc and Carver going down. They're driving down Maryland. They complain they get the shit detail. That's
Mm-hmm.
what a lot of what they do is they complain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They complain all the time that they're not being respected and they're being undermined and they're kind of just given the grunt work. And for it's because they kind of deserve it. Though I always
Yeah.
thought they don't really do anything to prove otherwise. And
And that's a foreshadow moment too to the end of season 2, where they're talking to Daniels and they're like, "Man, we're your mules in this detail. Like, basically, you don't have us do shit. You don't get to do anything. So just from season 1, episode 4, all the way to the end of season 2." Where they're going off on Daniels at the end of the season, it's like, well, we don't get to do anything in this detail. That's been the case since we were introduced to y'all, pretty much,
yeah.
like that's who y'all are.
Well, I think is also no, it's a great point, and it's like and also like Daniels, it probably hurts more because Daniels knew them previously. It's not like they
Yeah,
were just assigned to him.
yeah,
So like Daniels took them in, having previously worked with him, and then decided, we're gonna give you guys like the shit detail because he probably knows them better. He knows their work ethic and he knows their competency level. And also, like these guys, I feel like were pretty young too. They're like in their 20s.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
almost makes sense in terms of that level of like, we probably would, it's you start off, we give you like the grunt work, and if you prove yourself, we kind of give you more. That never seemed like unfair to me. It always seemed like, well, these guys are like the new officers, whereas the other people are actual detectives.
Right.
So it never even seemed to me like they were being undermined. I think they just have like these huge egos where they just feel like they deserve to be respected really for no reason.
yeah.
Sure.
Showing like the egos of the cops. But when they're driving down there, Carver is like, well, just imagine this. And they give like this whole fantasy sequence of how like they rough up Bodhi, and Bodhi start giving up Avon and Stringer, and then Herc and Carver become heroes. They're just living in a fantasy land. That's what's
Yeah.
like. They're just spending time playing make believe because that's all they have going for them.
Yeah, they really
Um,
think they're gonna crack, but I think a part of them actually believes they're gonna crack the case like this. Like we're gonna bust his head open and he's gonna start speaking, and
right, because that's all they know. They don't know like the job. They just think like, hey, if we fuck him up well enough, he's gonna just tell us all this information um, about the Barksdale crew,
yeah,
right? And it shows, this is what they actually believe is gonna happen, but they're so careless that they just drive by. And a great editing scene because we see them drive by and then the camera zooms in to show Bodhi's hitchhiking essentially
yeah, yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
the freeway. Uh, really just and he managed to get pretty far, for Bodhi. Like he's down south, he manages to find his way back to the projects. It's like pretty impressive for like a 16-year-old kid to do that, you know.
I mean, he stole a car too. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You know. I mean.
Yeah. He managed to steal a car. Like because it says right here, I have the scene up. It's like something like 20 miles away from there. Like it's pretty good. Yeah. So then the next scene, we get back to the cases, and McNulty and Bunk basically realize like we hit a wall, you know,
Mhm.
and land landsman comes over and he's like, "Hey, I got a case for you," and he looks at this old murder that was done apparently by a guy named D. And Jimmy's basically telling him like, "Well, I don't. This doesn't have anything to do with our case. It's not a match." I mean, again, it's a moment of Jimmy thinking he's smarter than everyone,
Right.
because Landsman actually was right here. The case does have to do with D. You know.
Well, it's dumb luck too, right? Landsman is just trying to pawn it off, like, oh yeah, D, that should go with you guy too, right? But
Mm,
it happens to be D'Angelo that they're talking about, you know. So
yeah.
it does work out. But yeah, I think Landsman is just trying to like throw a case to them, and it's dumb luck, you know that
Mm,
uh, um. But yeah, this is actually one of my favorite storylines in season one. Tap tap tap. Here,
Mhm.
tap. You know, I think there's some good acting there and stuff. And so yeah, so he says there's a lady that got killed, and you know, the guy's D'Angelo. So you guys got a D'Angelo. This should be for you guys. And McNulty's like, no, this they're not talking about the same D, but they end up taking it, you know, because I think
Mhm.
he gives the case to Bunk because of McNulty,
mm.
you know. So he's like, maybe you guys, and then Bunk and McNulty have to go work it. Yeah, it's a that which is one of my favorite scenes.
It
One
is.
word on the whole scene, but
Yeah.
that.
And then when even just that moment about McNulty just acknowledging, just showing his sense of just being more than a cop, he's like, you know, every now and again we visit the projects, they live there. You know, it
Yeah.
just shows like, hey, look, I am a cop, but I do feel for the people that, you know, the people that I'm helping. Like I really feel for their situation. I got another
Right.
question too. What did Landsman say to them when they were asking, and he was like, they don't have cars? When he asked, I've never understood what he meant when he said that. He said that to Bunk and McNulty. They were like, how does this one connect to all the other West Side mopes? And he was like, they don't have cars. What does that mean? Do y'all know what that line means or what?
I guess he's saying that, oh, what, they can't afford cars, they can't go outside of the West Side to commit a crime.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense because
Yeah.
like they all like basically lack resources. I mean, most of them don't have a car. Even D'Angelo doesn't have a car.
Right.
Well, no,
Yeah.
but I think Landsman was being sarcastic. What, they don't have cars, like they can't
Right.
get means of
They can't. They
transportation?
can't go get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
To Landsman, they're all the same. I think that's what the thing is. He's just like, look, they're D. His name is D. Just fucking solve the case, right? And
Yeah.
like you said, it is dumb
Landsman is a
luck.
very underrated side character.
He is. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, he definitely is, and I think that's why I like him so much in We Own This City, because I like him so much in The Wire. Like
Mhm.
I like Landsman. Like and also too, I like when he calls Jimmy his son. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
it's
He's
like.
always fucking with Jimmy. Yeah,
Right.
he's
It's
always
like,
fucking
hey,
with
this
Jimmy.
is my son. And then in season 5, when the case, you know, when they had to shut down the detail, and they got Jimmy and Kimmer got to go back to homicide, and Jimmy kicks the desk, and Landsman is like, prodigal son. That's you know
That's right.
that's my son, you know, kind of thing. Like I love their relationship.
Yeah, they have a fun relationship. Yeah.
He like taps him on the cheek a little bit. Yeah, no, well, he's a great like realistic boss, right? Because he can be like a pain in the ass at times, and is like hard headed and can be
Mhm.
obnoxious to work for. But like when it really comes down to it, he has your back. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like he's a good boss in that sense, where he's not a bad guy at all. There are
right. No,
moments
he's
where
not.
he actually shows that he can do the right thing. He's kind of like in like Daniels, he's kind of like a middle manager, you know. He's in charge of he has to get a lot of shit from the major because his job is basically to get the clearance rate high, right?
Yeah.
And so he cares a lot about the numbers because that's what um that's what makes his unit more effective. That's what ensures they get more funding, you know.
Yeah.
So he sees this. He's like, hey, we're like you need to do this for the department because we need to solve this in order to make the homicide unit look good, you know. And it is funny how he turns out to be right here just
He
by dumb
does.
luck.
And
Uh,
just staying on Landsman too, his real life character, the cop who his real life story is portrayed out after. The Bunk story when he sets his clothes on fire, that's a real story. Okay. When he sets his clothes on fire with the lady, that's a real story that happened to the cop that plays Landsman or the cop that is Landsman in
oh
real
wow,
life.
okay.
Yeah, that's a real story from his story. You know, I don't know any other crazy true life stories like that one, but I knew that one was
That's funny.
from Landsman's true story.
The actual Jay Landsman. Yeah, because when I saw the credits, I remember thinking like, wait a second, that says Jay Landsman, but then I realized that's another character
Mm-hmm.
that the actor's name is Jay Landsman. He's the real Landsman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, no, it's funny how that all comes around. There are a few actors like that. We see like the real Omar that is based on.
Mhm.
Um, and this is a great scene too because it shows McNulty and Bunk's dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, Jimmy knows the game better than everyone else. He knows like why the guy wouldn't um why the guy wouldn't flip earlier, you know. And
Right.
then Bunk is just like asking, he's like, how far are you guys with this? He's like, I won't have anybody valuable. Santangelo's never here. And he shows like he's been covering for Santangelo.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you said that, Jack. Yeah. Isn't the irony that he's been covering for Santangelo and Rawls had Santangelo in there to sneak
Yeah.
Jimmy? You know,
Yeah.
like the irony of man, I mean Santangelo's never here and I cover for him all the time, but in actuality, Rawls has him in there to kind of watch you and to be his snitch, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, Rawls McNulty could easily just say like Santangelo has been nowhere to be found to Daniels and give
yep.
him. But he shows that he also has a code. He's not just gonna like rat out his fellow cop. They probably go back. McNulty's not gonna do him like that. He's
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't. He has a code. He's not just gonna give. He's been like covering for him or making excuses the entire time. And meanwhile, Santangelo is like out there trying to fuck Jimmy over, or being told to fuck Jimmy over against his will, really.
Right. Right.
There's a great moment too in this scene when Bunk is like looking at the information about that case, and he's like, "Well, there's a callback number." And Jimmy says, "Then call."
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
Bunk gives him a look like, "What did you just say?" And Jimmy's like, "You heard me." And he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Like, fine. And then he just calls like, like that's kind of their rapport. He's like, "Yeah, do it."
Yeah. He got you, Jimmy.
You
You
got you,
know.
Jimmy. Yeah, it comes back on there. It's like, all right, motherfucker, you got me too. He's a great like disgruntled employee.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Bunk always gets the shit end of stuff. Like I don't know if y'all have ever put that together. Every season, they have him on an impossible mission. Probably except for season one, he not really. His
Yeah.
case is not really crazy. You know, he has to deal with the witness stuff. But season two, he's got all the bodies. The
Yeah.
Jane
yeah,
Does, by himself at first, kind of thing. In season three, he has to look for the gun in Baltimore, the cop's gun.
Yeah.
Which was crazy to me. But and in season four, he's got the case where he's looking for somebody, he can't find them, and that ends up being 22 victims in the housing. And then in season five, he has no resources to do it, to solve it. Like
mm,
he's always fighting an uphill battle, but
Yeah.
everybody loves the Bunk.
yeah. Also because of Jimmy too, right? I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of cases are brought up because of his partner that he's given cases he doesn't even want to investigate. Um, But it's dumb luck that he happens to, that Landsman finds the right case, but also they give it to his best detectives who are able to solve that case.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite scenes, which we'll get onto later on this episode, where they find the bullet casing.
Right.
Um, so the next scene over here is what's it called? Greg's and
Bubbles.
driving Bubbles around in the car, right? And basically Greg's is saying like we hit a dead end and now we don't know what to do because the Barksdale crew is onto us from the previous episode's raid. And she's trying to find exactly where they think the robbery happened. And Bubble says like, well, I think it was this guy named Omar. And that's
Right.
when we realize that Omar has like this reputation as this essentially this badass boogeyman.
Yeah. When she's like, she goes, is he dangerous? He said that boy don't play. So that's how
Yeah.
that Omar. Well, we already know that Omar's known in the streets, right? From
Mm.
he is danger. We already know like Omar's So yeah, this is and then we get the story of No Heart Anthony, right? He goes,
Yeah.
oh well,
Oh,
not
the
yet.
name. We get the
said
name. Yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't meet up with McNulty yet, but he goes, No Heart Anthony, and then he goes, I'm ashamed to be your snitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
How do you not
know.
love Bubbles? He's like busting her balls, like and she's like, all right, like she knows that, like, yeah, you got a point. I don't know who Noah Anthony is. That's his brother. It's funny how there's a few characters like that come up that you never see them, but their reputation kind of where you just hear their backstories like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It makes the world feel more lived in.
Yeah,
Everyone has a story. Everyone is related to someone, or it's all like a 6 degrees of separation kind of thing.
Yep. We saw him one time in the short.
in the prequel.
The little Omar, the little Omar short. He didn't have any words, but that's the only time we see No Heart Anthony.
No, he had words. He said, Oh no, he didn't, right?
I'm trying to remember what did he say? No, I don't think he said anything. He said, "Man, get your brother, Anthony," and he just kind of smiled like,
"Yeah, that's Omar."
Yeah. Okay. So, and I was gonna say one cool thing too is that you could tell that it's like shot inside the car too. I always thought that was interesting. Makes you feel like you're just driving around with these people.
Yeah.
And, throughout the episode, it feels like Bubbles just getting babysat by McNulty and Greg's.
Right.
And because we see, excuse me. The next part is, speaking of Omar, we go to where he's at with Brandon, and they're collecting all the money, and it shows Omar has like a place in the community where he helps people out. He provides them with money. Kind of like what Jesse was mentioning about what McNulty said about like these people, they live in the streets, they live in this community, they have more of a connection to these people, to the criminals, than the cops. In a way, these characters rely on people like Omar to feed their family. So they have more of a camaraderie. They're less trusting of the cops because the cops really don't give a shit. The only time they go visit these communities is when they're going to arrest them. They don't actually care about helping them. Whereas Omar is providing them with income, with food. People like the Barksdale crew, or even we see in the second episode how Avon is putting together this like community fundraising event for them. So that woman comes over, is like, I don't have enough money right now, and he helps her out and also gives her a little money, basically.
Yeah, and so Bailey complains, right? He's like, "Oh, here she comes again," right? And Omar's like, "Come over here," and then he rubs the kid on the cheek, the baby on the cheek, and says, "Yo, hook her up." might hook her up.
Yeah.
So he's like, she probably begs over for Omar a lot. The funny part is too, like, she all this stuff that like Stringer said about like him like being the Robin Hood. When he's hiding, she gives him a place to stay. This is Omar building relations with the community, right?
Yeah.
Like the other guy's like, here she comes, always begging, like, let's get rid of her, and Omar's like, nah, hook her up, I found it kind of funny that Omar sees the baby and feels bad for her, like, yeah, give her some more crack. She has a baby.
That's what I was about to ask, Jesse. Okay, so Jack, when she comes, I always thought all these years that when he says, yeah, hook her up, he's telling the kid to give her some free drugs, right? Because she said her check was late.
Mm-hmm.
Did you all take that as he was giving her money or drugs?
I always took it as money.
You took it as money? What about you, Jesse?
Yeah.
I thought it was drugs.
You thought it was drugs?
I thought she was coming from another.
Because now I'm not confused because she said her check was late. So are you saying that your check is late? So
my
you
check
need
is
the
late,
money?
so I can't buy drugs.
So I can't buy drugs.
I think it might be just a combination of both. I mean, like, he knows the money is going towards drugs at the same time. It's like, but he also knows, like, they do need money to survive.
What? Money makes more sense. I've always thought drugs. Leland, thank you for making me think I'm not crazy, though.
But no, I thought it was drugs. But Stringer said when they were watching the kid play basketball, he was talking to Avon. They were sitting up watching the kid play for the game. He was telling Avon, like, what he does? He peels off packages and gives them to people in the community.
That's what I'm
Stringer
saying.
said
gives drugs,
Stringer
right?
said it was drugs, but she said her check was late. And now I'm thinking, like, maybe it is money. Now I'm like, I've never thought, like, maybe he was giving her money and not. I thought it was drugs.
I thought it was. I thought it was drugs, and I go back to my opinion that it is drugs because Stringer said that. Yeah.
Okay, and then another thing too. This is another little nugget I caught from that scene. They said Omar said Avon's packages always be moving. So you've been sticking him up consistently, and Avon doesn't know who you are, or like what is? How have you been able to rob him consistently, and they don't know who you are? Because he said Avon packages always be moving. That means you've been sticking them up. Like
we discussed this last episode, though. I think when Jack said, like, when Bodie says Omar, Weebay says Omar, like it could mean Omar again.
Okay, right. Okay.
And then they probably don't, right, Jack?
Yeah, because Avon. Well, also in this episode, Avon, they have that scene where they're playing basketball and they talk about Omar.
Right.
And what's his face?
Doesn't know him. Half the other people know him.
Right. Yeah, Stinkum says like, hey, he was in the cut with Bird. Yeah, and Bird mentioned that he's gay, so they know who he is. They definitely like already have a relationship because I'm sure that Avon knew him too. Then, like, if Bird and Savino and all these people already knew who he was, I doubt that like he didn't know him also. Yeah. I think he just has this like ghost like reputation where he can just kind of be infallible, and.
I think The Wired is a little flawed in introducing characters and their reputations. They're like something always doesn't add up. It's like, because it's like Omar's this big fierce guy, but like, you're right. We do get kind of like a sense of like Avon's just learning about him. Like he should be on Avon's radar if he's fucking up his packages.
Yeah. Right. Because in season 3, when Avon came home, he was all over Omar. Like he was trying to deal with Marlo and he was trying to deal with Omar. Like he was, so the moment he knew who he was like, he never let up. Like they've been chasing him since season 1.
So if I have to be a little critical here, I would say The Wire is a little is flawed in introducing the characters with their reputations, like. Because they introduce us to them, they want us to get to know them, and they explain it, and it's stuff that like, well, if they've been in the game, they should know that. That's a good point,
Yeah.
But also Marlo, I'm sorry, I keep saying Marlo. Avon's pretty higher up too.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know what
so
I
they could
mean?
just
True
be
enough.
hiding
True
it from.
enough.
They could be hiding it from him. Yeah.
Um, yeah, like whereas like I don't know, it's interesting too.
But if something keeps fucking your money run, you're gonna be like, "Hey, what's going on?" I mean,
yeah,
maybe
we're gonna
maybe,
find who this guy is.
maybe string is.
Um,
I don't know. I mean, yeah, there could be an excuse. They don't want to tell him, "Hey, we're getting robbed by Omar every other day." So but he's gonna question how come this money's not running the way it should be, right?
yeah. But also, I mean, like I feel like sometimes people are just like infallible. Sorry, like they make mistakes. You know, it is true. Like, why would he not know who Omar is though? But I think, um, yeah, like Avon doesn't know, but it's true that these other guys know because they mention him in the basketball scene, right?
Mhm.
And like they mention that he has this reputation. What's interesting is that like Greg's and the other cops don't know who he is, and even McNulty doesn't know. He knows about his brother, No Hard Anthony, and that's how they was able to find out who he is. You know,
Yeah,
um, you'd think that there would be like a report on him too.
Mm-hmm.
Like from all these robberies, you'd think that his name would like at least come up a few times.
yeah,
Um, but that's a good point. Well, then also we see Omar and Brandon, and like Omar is like basically like saying like, "Hey, you messed up, but that's okay." He kind of like he's like cuddling with him,
yeah, yeah.
which the other guy is weirded out by.
Yeah.
So, so like, all right. So this is a funny scene, right? Because the way I took it too, I said last episode, he's like, I'm not worried about myself, baby boy. I just don't want people knowing you.
Mm-hmm.
There was I think Omar snapped. I think he did get mad, and then
Mm-hmm.
he's just apologizing like one does to the like significant other, like and trying to make up an excuse. Like, no, no, no. I'm trying to protect you. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Um. Also, Leland, you made me think too. If that really was the case, they should be wearing masks, but then
mhm,
we won't get facial reactions during that robbery. And
Yeah.
we needed the facial reactions, so that's another part where film decided to take over the
The
realistic nature.
reality of it.
Because
Yeah.
I think you're right. If you wanted Brandon not to be noticed, why isn't Brandon wearing a mask?
Yeah.
But then we don't get the acting without the face mask. So
right.
that's kind of hard.
That's wow. That is a great catch, Jesse. That's a great nugget right there. Wow.
Yeah, you made me think about that last time because you're like, why don't they just wear masks? I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
then
Yeah.
I was like, but then we don't get the look. Omar
Mm-hmm.
shoots him a look and stuff. So, um,
Although we could have had like a little like eyes expression or whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
it would have been tougher to do though.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, would have shown.
Um,
Um, I like
then
this
Bailey's
little. Sorry, go
no, my
ahead.
bad. Then Bailey's kind of like, so Bailey, we know like most people like in the urban area, hood area. I mean, a lot of people everywhere are homophobic, right? So
Yeah.
we know like Bailey's probably a little homophobic here, but he knows Omar's badass. you
Right.
know, he stays. So he's cool enough to do the robberies with him, but when he gets all lovey-dovey with his boyfriend, he's like, I gotta go.
Yeah, he's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
you don't want to spend the night? You don't want to stay over here? He's like, nah, I'm gonna go to my mom's house. I'm good. I'm all
Yeah.
right.
Which it actually probably would have benefited him if he did stay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. He ended up getting got
Well, it's
sometime in the
also
future. Yeah, not far from
No,
that
not far from.
interaction.
Yeah.
it's also 2002. When attitudes towards gay people, I mean, they're still not great, right?
But it was
But
different then.
were
Yeah,
even worse back then.
yeah,
And yeah, homophobia was rampant. It's a big theme throughout this show, homophobia, especially later on in the episode when Omar finds out that, oh, he was gay, when Stinkum tells him like, hey, we found out that he was gay.
Yeah.
And
I
then he's
want
like,
to talk
all
about
right.
that scene when we get
Yep,
there.
same.
Oh
I
yeah,
took a
definitely.
note.
So
I
I'm not
got a
gonna
note.
jump ahead.
It's a
But
good
Yeah,
scene. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, no, there's even part where like he puts his hand on Bailey's shoulder. It's like, "Are you all right?" And he kind of like wiggles away uncomfortably.
Yeah,
You
Yeah,
could
yeah,
tell he's like grossed out. He's like, "Nah, I'm okay," you know.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's not like, "Ooh, gay people, stay away," you
I
know.
know, which is kind of like so dumb, right? Like a gay guy puts his hand on your shoulder, like you gonna like, ugh.
Yeah, yeah, they just get grossed out. Yeah, yeah, you know. And honestly, it was really daring to make like the main badass guy like gay. You know, it's just another
yeah,
layer
At
to
the
the
time,
story. You
at the
know.
time,
yeah. And what I
Um,
don't know is if the real Omar is homosexual or not. I don't know.
no. So
I don't care,
the
but I
funny
mean, you
part
know,
is, I actually heard David Simon talk about it, and they were like,
really.
yeah, yeah. So a blogger on YouTube got him to do one of these stream yards.
Mhm.
And he asked him about Omar, the choice of being Omar being gay. He said, Omar's based on a few people, and one of the few people, there was two people always together, and I thought they were gay for the
Oh,
longest time. And he's like, his partner was like, they're not gay. He's like, oh really? I just assumed they were gay. So then
uh,
when he made the show, he was like, oh, I
just
don't
do
know.
that in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic because like Jack just said, what we're gonna touch on when we get to that
yeah,
scene later in the show about we'll touch
yeah.
on
So
it, but the homophobic part is it's an interesting like dynamic kind of thing, and that we'll touch on that in a few scenes. But yeah,
yeah.
they almost feel like, yeah, offended that he's gay.
Well,
right.
one of them, yeah. Well, I like that little exchange. So when we get there,
Oh yeah, but yeah. Then the next scene, McNulty talking to Greg's, and they do that whole like, this is a thing that happens a lot. I saw even a meme about this where like they're like, why do cops go on like a little date with where they have the cop pulling up next to him,
Mhm.
when they're parking up, and Greg is basically like gives Bubbles to McNulty to take care of. Like I said,
McNutty.
things are like babysitting
McNutty.
What's up,
Hey,
McNutty.
McNutty?
McNutty.
Hey, McNutty. And she's like, she asked that question, is like, do you ever hear of No Heart Anthony? Um, and McNulty immediately knows who he is,
Knows his
like without
apartment number.
hesitation.
How?
Yeah, he
How?
knows the apartment number. He knows exactly. He has like this, like just insane memory. Like that, he's obsessed with his job.
Yeah.
How? All of the cases, all of them cases.
He's
How do
a,
you know
Yeah,
that man's apartment number?
well, when we find out about No Heart Anthony's story, it is pretty. It's a story to go around the
It's
office.
legendary.
Right?
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess
You know,
that. Yeah, I guess that takes the precedent. If it wasn't McNulty's case, it's not like he's holding on to his cases. It's just that this case was so legendary. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's a
yeah.
valid
And
point.
it's just a great moment of like, of course McNulty would know this. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? He knows everything. Um, so it's frustrating for him because he's surrounded by people that don't know as much,
Yeah,
but he's not able to do what he wants with the information because of the dead ends with the police department, which is kind of the core of like his character.
Mhm.
And it's a great moment too, because like Bubbles is like, "All right, my man Jimmy," and like he gains respect for him there, like, and then Greg's like, "Fuck you," and he drives off. And a great editing moment because you just see him drive off, and immediately it's cut to like the basketball, the swooshing sound of the basketball going
Yeah,
into the hoop. It's like it's really like well edited to show the continuity of sound, and
Okay, so now we're at the basketball scene.
yeah,
hmm
now we're at the basketball scene.
So, I if I could do because I love this scene,
Go
I
for it.
got
Yeah, of
memorized.
course.
They're like, so Stinkham was like, they're talking about Omar, and Stinkham goes, Burr used to bunk with Omar. He's all gay and shit.
hmm
And everyone's like, gay. And we was like, yeah, he had a whole stable of guys. he got less, he got less, he got less reason for pussy now that he's out, right? And then,
Yeah.
so then, everyone's like, what? Like, so, he's thinking, we got done by a gay guy, right? And he's like, and then Stringer goes, So he got a lot of heart for a cocksucker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Avon's like, no, no, no. So we're doubling down on sweet.
Double the bounty because he's gay.
Yeah. So what Jack said, I think is true. Like it's almost more like we got done by a gay guy. It's like getting beat
Yeah.
up by a gay guy in school. It'll be like,
Yeah.
what? You got beat up by a gay guy, right? And it'll be like, so I guess it's that equivalent. So Stringer's way of looking at it is like, oh, this gay guy got heart. Like almost more respect for him. Where Avon's like, no, 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 no gay guys taking less respect for him.
Yeah.
And it was funny in that quick scene. I think we saw like two different point of views. You know.
Yeah. So, and just touching on that scene, right? Just few nuggets. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jesse.
Because and then let me just finish the scene real quick. And then Avon this is where he makes it known. I want these people killed and displayed out there for the projects to see. Like, he's like, when white people kill deer, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want them to be our deer. So we already got, so Avon wants them skinned and tortured, so yeah, go on.
Yeah, just a few notes from that scene. So Avon was offering $1,000 for a murder. Okay, let's break that down. Okay, $1,000 to go get your hands dirty with a murder that could land you in jail. Okay, I got you $1,000. Okay,
I know, right?
That's ridiculous. And then he says a $6,000 if I get to talk to him before he gets got. Okay, like it was just these people's. I know we talked about Marlo a little bit, how ruthless they were, how ruthless Chris and Snoop were, but Avon's
team was almost just as ruthless.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
a lot of people give them a pass, but
yeah, no regard for like $1,000. Yeah, people that'll go get you done for $1,000. Okay,
yeah,
like that just no regard for life. The life is worth $1,000 to me, kind of thing is what I took from that scene. Like it's like dang. And then when it happens and you think like, okay, they do end up getting one of them. They had to split it. They only got paid $500. Somebody got paid $500 to put a murder together. It's like just the cost of people's lives is nothing to these gangsters. Like it's unbelievable. And I think why people look at Marlo as more ruthless is maybe because he put them in them houses. But Avon had just as many. He had just as many homicides and deaths as Marlo. But the fans, we tend to hate Marlo more than Avon and give Avon a pass. But he was just as ruthless.
Yeah. I think also because it's just Marlo is more like outwardly cold-blooded, like his demeanor and his personality, whereas Avon kind of seems more like almost like fun and lighthearted at times. Where they see like, oh, this guy, he almost comes off like a person that you could do business with. It almost seems reasonable in a way. But you're right, he is ruthless. And I think also it's like their reputation was insulted, getting robbed like that. It's all about saving face, about like the idea of we're tough. And so it shows like if we're able to get robbed like that, people might think that we're not so impervious, that other people can rob us. So it's like putting a nip in the butt. It's like you said, it's like sending a message almost about like, hey, if we need to display to everyone that if you try to rob us, we'll not only kill you, we'll torture you and display your body for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Because they took it's not just about the money, it's about just getting robbed in broad daylight. Because not only did Omar rob them, but he also blew the leg off of
one of the workers
there. And also, if you want to look at it like symbolically, I always thought that it's interesting that everyone's wearing shirts except for Avon in that scene. And it shows like Avon just, his emotions are on full display, whereas Stringer is always more keeping it cool, waiting his next move. Avon's very headstrong. He's prone to anger. He's prone to impulsiveness.
Great catch, Jack. That's a very good catch. Wow.
Yeah. So thank you. So yeah, just a little small note I noted there too.
And then just to kind of transition into the next scene, when they're talking, when Stringer is telling Avon, like, hey, it's some stuff that might be going on in the pit. He's telling him, like they just got robbed. Police jumped out the next day, and he said, like you mentioned, Jesse, about, hey, your nephew's doing good. He's making that money, which we don't ever get to see how, but he said, your nephew's doing good. He's making that money, but he might have a problem that he don't know about.
Yeah.
And then Avon looked at him as if to say, like, you gonna take care of it? And
right.
Then said, I'm on it. I got it.
Yeah.
So it's another just silent cinema, of them showing, hey, look, we have a pecking order established where, Avon is king and Stringer is a king, but he reports to Avon.
Well, I think that's another thing too between Avon and Marlo. Why people just assume that Marlo's like the more ruthless one is just because we saw Avon's love for his family, right? Like, how's my nephew? Like, we see him like he really cares about D. Like, he doesn't want D messed up. If D has a problem, Stringer's supposed to take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point.
He definitely cared for his nephew. Like, that's one thing where I felt like D'Angelo resented him maybe for having his whole family in the game, but at the same time, when it came to family, I think Avon did a lot of, in terms of giving D'Angelo a lot of shots, a lot of opportunities. I think he just resented the fact that his uncle was the kingpin, but in terms of how he treated him specifically, I don't ever feel like he wronged D'Angelo. Like,
if anything,
I never got that. I never took that. Like,
well, I mean, making him drive out there with no backup and anything to Jersey.
Yeah, maybe that part.
But
I mean, like, he definitely cared about him, though.
Yeah,
that's
what I'm saying. Right there,
a little bit of favoritism,
Yeah. Although in the end, he did him and his mom did him dirty by making him take the years.
Yeah, no facts, but. Other than that part,
right? And it's also that's the business too. From their angle, it makes sense why they think like, hey, you're young, you could easily take the years, and they would you probably get out in half the time, right? So it actually makes sense. No, but Avon, he does care about him up until the very end, until he dies. He's still like, after he finds out he's dead, he's truly heartbroken for him, in a genuine way, and so instead of like immediately assuming D'Angelo is the snitch, and also Stringer gives him a leeway too, because he says like, hey, there's somebody out there, we'll take care of it. I think like we talked about, Stringer has this animosity towards D'Angelo, but he also, he'll look out for him when the time comes when he needs to.
That's just because of Avon. He cannot stand. He cannot stand.
He's part of the organization. He's looking out for him because he has to. But it also too, just that little nugget with Stringer, it shows like his intuition is up. Like, hold on, something is fishy. Already. Like, he's already thinking like, something's not right in the pit. What's going on? Why are the police jumping out? Why is the robbery happening? What's going on here?
Something else before we move on to the next scene. I don't know if we paid attention to this though, but to me, like, I'm just thinking about it now. It kind of feels like he just daps D'Angelo up when his uncle's around. Like, hey, what's up, D? I feel like he just ignores D's handshake.
I'm trying to think. It's a scene at the end of season 1 when the stash house gets raided, the Avon stash house, right? And Avon is walking up on them and he's telling them like, hey, look, these are the new numbers. Okay, these are the new numbers. Don't give them to nobody, And Bodie reaches his hand out to dap Stringer, and he don't dap him at all.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think, there's one other scene. I think when they first pull out the payphones, right? And D'Angelo's looking at Stringer, and Stringer just kind of walks away. You kind of see him turn his back on him.
You're right. I think it's just String's. You're right. Now that you mention that, I think it's just String's personality with the lower level.
Yeah. He doesn't like D'Angelo. Like, it's then we'll touch on in later episodes some nuggets that kind of like show you that Stringer is, you know what? I'm foreshadowing some stuff that I'm not really fond of your nephew. We'll touch on that when we start breaking down season 2. But it's definitely some foreshadowing nuggets where it's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna have him eliminated. Like,
Yeah. Well, even in the last scene, he barely acknowledge the last episode when he goes up to talk to him. Stringer doesn't really acknowledge D'Angelo until he directly asks him a question. He kind of is condescending at best and just kind of dismissive towards him.
Yep.
And, before we go on to the next scene, I just thought it's interesting how he just sends the two away before Avon and Stringer talk, just showing like they are the top dogs, and these other guys, even though they're all at the top of their organization, you know, they Weebay, Stinkum, Savino, they all work for Avon and Stringer.
Yeah.
So
Great scene, great acting, great dialogue.
Yeah, great sound too. You just like you hear the cleats against the gymnasium. You know, it shows like what they do in their off time. They play basketball. And that's how they talk too. You know, it's where they talk. So the next scene we go over, and they're in fucking rich peopleville. And
yeah, let me bring Chunky to go see my son play.
Right, yeah, McNulty brings.
Right. He's so dedicated, you know, that I'll bring a junkie to my son's soccer game. You know,
he's babysitting. Well, he's also looking out for Greg's too. In a way. He's like facts. Greg's, you know, and like.
No, I know, but it's just, I mean, I would get killed if my parents would kill me if I bring like a junkie to go see my son get inducted to the fire department. Like, what are you doing? Like,
I'm babysitting this heroin addict for the day, and
but like we said at the same time, his first and foremost, before even being a good dad for McNulty, is being a cop.
Right.
You know, the cop, the good cop in me needed to watch this CI for my partner. You know, it just so happens I got to go to a soccer game too. But and even when he gets there, he tells his ex, "This job, I'm late because of this job." You know, like he's first and foremost, if nothing else, I'm a cop, and that's like what I live and breathe and die through. Like, you know, so.
Well, also, it shows, to my opinion, that he doesn't look down on Bubbles. Like, it's kind of a theme throughout McNulty. He doesn't judge him. He doesn't even think anything of it because he's like, whatever. He's just a guy that I don't have to work with. He's not. Yep. He wouldn't think like. It would be the same thing if he brought like Bunk over, for instance. He just think like, well, this is a guy from work. Like he doesn't really judge people in that sense, which
right. He don't look down on people. Like the ex did. She didn't even shake his hand.
Yeah. She looked at him like, ugh.
I felt bad for Bubbles at that moment.
I did too. That was tough. You know, that was tough.
It's like
because he's just trying to be a guy, and like obviously he looks like shit.
Right. He look rough now.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm picturing. I'm just picturing like somebody who just like recently shot up and stuff, and you're bringing them to like a family soccer game. Like, you're gonna get some looks, you know.
Right. Well, this is also like he's recently broken up from his wife, and his wife is still pissed off at him because of the affairs. So she's not really happy to see him to begin with. And then this is almost like just like an unexpected, like the last thing that she wants to see, because his job is the thing that kind of partially ruined their marriage, right? So he's bringing his job with him. It's just a reminder to him of all the shit that kind of led up to them being separated. You know, it's kind of the last thing she wants to be reminded of when at her son's soccer game.
Right.
A little brief like trivia thing. He mentions like, oh, this is like Leave It to Beaverland. Later on in season 3, or season 4 rather, when Bunny has Naaman over, and he mentions like, you're Eddie Haskell, which is the character from Leave It to Beaver.
Good catch.
Like it was like a little
good full circle.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, really rich area, like reminds me of like Port Washington or something. I don't know. Me and Jesse are Long Island people, so you know, and you can see Bubbles is just like, where the hell are you? Could tell this is the first time he's ever been there.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny
Um,
because I was thinking Manhasset area. Am I lying?
yeah, just a lot of there are some rich places like that around here. Um, and Bubbles is just like his eyes widen because he's like he's never been out of the projects before. This is the
Mm-hmm.
first time been anywhere.
He didn't know what soccer was. Like,
Yeah,
you
he
know.
didn't. He's so just like in his own world. And he's like 30 years old, never left that area. So it's a very sad, eye-opening thing. Kind of shows you Bubbles' world here. Really,
Mm-hmm.
that's when the show
Leland,
opens up.
is there projects where you live? Is there projects?
In Atlanta?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't live in Atlanta per se, but like in Georgia, yeah, for sure.
project housing.
Yeah.
Cause I think Cali doesn't have project housing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. It's
No,
a lot.
because
They've demolished a lot in Atlanta, but there's definitely some
yeah, because no,
project areas still for
I
sure.
know like the movie Friday, like it's like they're like that's like the hood out there. The hood is like looks like regular houses. Like there's
Yeah.
no
No, I
problem.
mean it's Atlanta's huge too. I think Atlanta population is out 7 million or six and
Oh
a half million or something. So I mean, there's a bunch of bad areas, bad hood areas, but I mean, there's also the other side of Atlanta where you got 7, 8, 9 million dollar homes, stuff
yeah,
like that. So I
wow.
mean, it's pretty big city.
Oh
All right,
yeah.
Jack, where we at?
Okay, so then we go to his soccer game. And by the way, I have the episode open too on my in case you see me looking at my laptop. It helps to watch it like silently as I'm going through this.
Okay.
So he's at his son's soccer game, and it shows that like his wife is depriving him of seeing his own kid,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sad because it's a real thing.
Yep.
Even though he's hasn't been a faithful husband, he's still a dad, and it's sad that like in divorces that's it shows that like they use their kid as basically like a pawn in
Mm-hmm.
this settlement rather than like a human being who needs their father. um and you really kind of sympathize with Jimmy in this scene,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
though he didn't act well to say the least towards his wife.
Mm-hmm.
You do feel for him. You gain a lot of sympathy for Bubbles and McNulty in this scene
Yeah.
because like what Jesse said, it's really heartbreaking to see him like go for a handshake and for Elena to just be like ugh, like have
Yeah.
that reaction. You see him like so sad and defeated in that. um and so yeah, it shows Jimmy's world, how he's struggling to see his son. um and then they cut back, and the like it's just the utter contrast of like light and the happy rich area where he's playing soccer, and then you see like this really depressing slum, dark at night with like people shooting up and
Mm-hmm.
sirens going off, and then that's when the title appears, the title line, thin line between heaven and here.
Yep.
um and yeah, just a great uh demonstration of showing like the disparities between class
Mm-hmm.
and showing what like privilege, economic privilege really looks like. Really like it tackles this episode kind of tackled that like socioeconomic issue really well here.
And Jack, just touching on just little cinema catches that we catch. Just going from the daytime with the soccer field to the nighttime when he dropped off Bubbles to the next scene, it shows the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make sure that as the audience, we catch that we're transitioning day to day kind of thing. Like just a little cinematic moment like that. Like it's just the attention to detail is something else why I've always loved this show. Like just giving us as the audience to show just that little sign. Hey, we're going to the next day. Let me just show you. We're going to the next day. Let me just get you in line with the timeline. So.
Oh yeah, and even like the scene ends with like it fades out. That's what I thought was great. Jimmy, he says that to Jimmy and that line, and Jimmy immediately knows what he's talking about. It shows like he's like a deeply empathetic person. He knows
Yeah.
like wow, that's because you just see Bubbles walk off and into the abyss, right?
Yeah.
And
We
he's
don't
like,
know where you going.
he doesn't know where he's going, but it's not any place good. And like Jimmy feels genuinely sad for him,
Yeah.
and it fades out. And like you said, boom, next day, like perfect way to transition the that scene. Um, and then the next scene is they're in the terrace, and they see Bodhi come back, just walking back, and like, wow, they really they just he like Poot says like they let you out after punching a cop, and he's like, no man, I escaped.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like talking shit. He's like, they can't hold me in there.
Yeah,
And then
Bodie's like trying to boast himself up too, right?
yeah,
That place can't hold. And D'Angelo kind of like, my bad, I cut you off. I use,
no,
but D'Angelo lets out like a snarkle, like and he's like, what, and then
yeah. Well, that's the
so
thing too is Bodhi up until this point, and a few of them kind of been not really showing D'Angelo any sort of respect,
Yeah.
or they don't kind of look at him with this like what in the way that they're impressed with
Mm-hmm.
him. And D'Angelo kind of picks up on this, um, and says like, you guys have never been in prison before.
Mm-hmm.
And then he tells them this story that will go come up later on in the episode, but it's important to this episode in particular. It's this scene's important because D'Angelo is basically like telling the story because he's trying to show them like, I'm not just some nepo baby that's like some fuck up kid. Like, I've done dirty work.
Mm-hmm. He's
And
trying to prove his reputation.
yeah,
right, yeah, exactly. He's trying to prove to them who he is. And the way he tells the story, this is when you see like the cold-blooded part of D'Angelo, because he's like bragging about this murder that he committed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he does it like so nonchalant, like so matter-of-factly of like how he went about it, and like this really cold-blooded way of this woman who Avon was seeing. Of course, Avon is a big womanizer. He sees all these people, but then she's threatening to go to the police. And so Avon sends D'Angelo to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
And two, at the same time, when he's telling the story, if you all catch Bodie's facial expression, he's not buying it. Like when he finishes telling the story, Bodie's like,
I don't know if he's not buying it as much as he's like, really, like,
yeah,
I think he's halfway.
halfway. Yeah. And when I was rewatching that, because I watched it again this morning, and I saw that, I was like, is he more so saying, yeah, you didn't do it? Is his facial expression saying, yeah, you didn't do that? Or is it like, I don't know if you really did that. Like, I don't know like what exactly that facial expression is, but he's got some doubt. Like, he's like,
I think there's doubt. Yeah.
that's interesting that you guys thought that. I took it almost as like he's being a little slow in this scene, because
really?
he even says like, and then what happened? And Wallace like, he shot him. Like,
Oh yeah,
what do you
right,
think?
right.
What are you not following along here? Like it almost comes off like, I don't know. It is interesting. It almost costs like Bodhi's like a step or two behind with this story. Like he
I
doesn't
mean, he did
realize
just
like,
get beat up and beat
right.
senseless by the cops,
And he
No,
and he hitchhiked back to from,
Yeah,
I think he
was
was
discombobulated.
I think he was being suspicious. I think
Mhm.
he's yeah.
Bodhi never
But,
lets his guard down, which is what makes him a good soldier.
Yeah.
I think this D'Angelo Larry Gillard, great acting here. Great.
Mhm.
He's a great actor.
Yeah.
I've seen him. He's been in a few other shows. He was even in a show that I watch a lot of, which is the Power Universe. Yeah, he was in Raising Canaan. He was like a drug dealer. Yeah,
and he was
in
in
a few movies too.
He was in the Deuce too.
Yeah.
Another Ed Simon show.
Yeah, and then also too, just about character traits. Pooh only cares about women. So like when he was breaking down the story, Pooh said, what did he say? He said, if she was naked, well, why didn't you have sex with her first?
Oh yeah.
And then he said, when he was breaking down the story, he said that she comes to the door naked, and then you hear Pooh say, "Damn, she was naked." Like it just show it's other signs like that in The Wire where It shows what the character is all about.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. The
Donut
wire.
from season 4. Like if
Yeah.
you listen,
Yep.
everything is about cars, kind of thing. It's just little nuggets like that.
Yeah, the
Like,
wire is probably the best at character analyzation.
yeah,
Well,
Character.
also Wallace even responds to that by saying like, he's like, "Wow, you're disgusting. Shut up." It
yeah,
shows a
right,
little
right,
character moment there. Like it comes, it comes off because it's like friends like joking around with each other, but then in a more subtle way, it shows like Wallace is more innocent than either one of them. He's
right,
not thinking
for
about
sure.
violence or sex. To him, it's just like a story, and he's definitely the most like childish out of all three of them. Um, but yeah, but also like you said, Larry Gilliard, great performance because the sound drops and you just hear him tell the story. It almost comes off like you're telling a scary story at like a campfire or some shit, like he's like, "Ooh, let me tell you about this one girl he shot," and the camera kind of focuses in on his face while he does it,
And
and
when I watched it, I believed it.
Yeah,
yeah,
facts.
He
No,
fooled me.
facts.
First time I saw it.
because
So
he has this sense of like he almost has remorse, but in a way it's just like to him it's just like, well, this is what I was told to do, and it's like it was either her or me, so it's like for me it makes sense with him. Like we had this sort of debate about D'Angelo and the about how he reacts to different killings, and for me it's like the ones that he feels are justified he doesn't necessarily care about because it's like he views it as self-defense, like in the guy that he gets off from the first murder that he's getting off
yeah.
of,
No,
before
not
Gant, the one he's on trial for.
yeah.
Or in this too, it's like, well, if I was either going to be killed or we're all going to be thrown in jail, so I had to kill them. Whereas he feels like innocent people, I always thought he's like, there's no reason for them to be killed. So in a way, his code, I always felt like was similar to Omar, where it's like if you're not in the game,
Yeah.
he doesn't feel the need
But
to
he couldn't even
die.
pull the trigger on this one, as we find out later on.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah, it's
trying
true. It's a good
to set up,
catch.
you know. So
Yeah, he's mainly just trying to impress them with that story.
Hmm.
yeah.
Um, I'm gonna jump to the next scene. Um, so, um, sorry, give me 1 second.
How far are we on the show? I'm just curious.
We're at 30 minutes left. Yeah, that's why. So okay, the next scene shows again the contrast from the project life to the city life. We see Burrell and Judge Phelan, and they're talking in Phelan's office. And again, kind of like the previous episode, it's the exchange of favors.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Burrell is basically complaining that we don't have enough manpower and we don't have enough resources to complete this case. And Phelan, he's saying like, what do we do? Phelan suggests getting donations from certain organizations that he knows. It's all about connections and the exchange of favors, right?
Yeah.
So Phelan mentioned that, oh, I know this guy on this board of trustees that it's like this charity organization. He's like, I can talk to him and get you some resources that you need. And then Burrell, without skipping a beat, it's like, okay, thank you. Like, what do you want in return? He knows like
Yeah.
he's not just doing this from the kindness of his heart. He's like, well, you probably want something too. And then he says, well, where are we at with this Barksdale case? And Burrell gives him some bullshit. Uh, the drug bust that he got. And it's kind of like it reminds me of like a student who's like half-assing a paper to his teacher and he's just like, is this good enough? He's like, no, this is
Yeah.
terrible. Like what are you talking about? We don't have Barksdale's name. And he's like, yeah, but what are you gonna do? We tried, we got a few good weeks. We could say that, you know, we did the best we could, and then the judge basically shuts him down. He doesn't take the bait. He knows like he sees right through Burrell that he's just trying to get rid of this case,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and he's like, nope, you gotta do better than that. Um, so great, kind of showing like the influence that these people have over each other. Burrell can't make it be known that we're not doing the case well. Um, I'm gonna jump to the next scene. Just if unless you guys have any other thoughts on that one.
Hmm.
Yeah. So uh Herc and Carver go to Bodhi's grandmother's house.
Hmm.
And this is the first time we actually see Bodhi's, and really the only time I think we see like Bodhi's grandmother
Mm-hmm.
or hear much about his family life. And they come in and they're like bashing through the doors, like, where the fuck is he? They're all going upstairs. And the grandmother just sits down, continues her knitting. Um, and then Carver comes out of there like, tell Bodhi we're on to him,
Yep.
try and act all tough. Her comes down and sees that like she's really not she's not acting aggressively towards him, and he kind of feels bad that maybe it was a moment of humanity for Herc, showing like he's not just a bad guy, he's a person too, and he
Which shows you,
apologized.
too, like Herc and like you would kind of, from where the show goes, you would expect Carver to do that because Carver is more like the lenient one when they get older and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
it just shows you like off an instinct, like Herc actually probably is the one with more compassion,
Yeah.
yeah.
in the beginning. And Bodhi's grandmother's reaction to it was just so funny, like drugs. Like she's just so like,
Yeah.
It's
she's
like the city is numb to drugs.
she's
Like,
she's yeah, she's numb to, well, and she's numb to cops arresting her grandson and family.
yeah.
She doesn't react twice to them like barging into her house.
Nope.
Yeah, she's just like,
uh
hi. Like, yeah.
Well, it's also like real life, right? People have unexpected moments of compassion when they like, it's like that's why I kind of like is nobody's like one dimensional. Like Herc isn't. Oh, he has moments where he shows that he's a good guy, and then he has moments where you hate him.
Yeah.
It's like a real person in that regards.
Yeah,
Um,
no. Herc was a good guy here. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and he's listening to her story, and she's basically saying that like he had a rough life. Or his dad ran off on him. His parents basically gave him to his grandmother. He
Mhm.
didn't really have a chance from the beginning.
And we find
And
out later on that he had an older brother that got killed in the
Yeah.
game.
yeah, and kind of gains sympathy. And Herc is just like patiently waiting there, listening to her story, and um, he realizes he's like, maybe we went about this the wrong way. He's like embarrassed, which was interesting. He was
Yeah.
embarrassed by the way he was behaving. And because if she had been like yelling at him, he might have thought like maybe this was justified. But he saw that no, this is just some old lady, and we're barging into her house
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
no.
Talking crazy too. Like, I mean, talking
yeah,
crazy. Like,
Yeah,
Carver
tell him
said,
we're on his
Carver
ass.
said, he said, if he's hiding here, I'm gonna beat this bitch like a redheaded stepchild. Like, this is an old lady. Like,
Right.
they were talking crazy in her house.
I
Like,
didn't catch that part. Yeah,
crazy. It's like when they're rumbling through the stuff upstairs. You hear him talking to her. He's like, I'm gonna beat this bitch like a redheaded stepchild if he's hiding in this piece of shit. Like, they in her house talking crazy. Okay, like,
Mhm. Yeah. And then Carver's outside even. He's like kind of proud of what he did, and Herc comes outside, and Carver's like, "What were you doing there?" He's like, "I was talking." He's like, "Talking." Like
yeah,
it's like what we're taught. Why are you even talking to this old lady? Like
mhm.
and it shows like they still don't get it that that's the job. Most of the
Right.
job is talking to people and doing. They still want this the old way of like beating people up first and asking questions later. Um, which makes their arc, at least Carver's arc, more meaningful later
Yeah.
on.
or
And Jack, just going off of what you just said, like when Herc comes out and the other two cops, they're talking to them like, like, man, you all were in the towers at 2 a.m. Like, that was so
oh
dumb,
yeah,
kind of thing. And Carver's like, nah, it wasn't us. Nah, it wasn't us. It just shows you, like, man, y'all are full of stupidity. Like,
Yeah,
y'all make some really stupid decisions. Even other cops are like talking like at 2 a.m. What are y'all doing? Like, kind of thing. It's like,
yeah, that's a great point. They don't. Yeah, they have like the shitty reputation, but they don't think they're doing anything wrong. They
right,
think like
exactly.
they just don't get it why they have to be doing this. And yeah, they're really interesting characters because like we discussed episode 2, you start off kind of hating them, but then you gain more sympathy for where they are. And um yeah, so that was interesting. The next scene, we see McNulty and Presbo is basically like under house arrest at the office. Presbo answers a phone, gives it to McNulty. We see that he has to answer from a payphone because he doesn't want it to be known that he's still talking to the
The
judge.
judge, yeah.
And the judge basically says like, I gave you an extension. They tried to pull some bullshit with the case by telling you that it's done, and I told them that's not good enough.
Yeah.
And McNulty's like, "Oh, great, thanks a lot." Like he doesn't say that, but you can tell that's what he's saying.
In his
He's
head,
like, "You're
yeah,
making my job more difficult now
yeah.
because my boss are
And
gonna be on my ass."
and it shows too when they flash to Presbo. I took this note down. It shows him on the word search puzzle. Like it shows him doing that before he gives the phone to McNulty too. So just foreshadowing to kind of his value a little later as he
Yeah.
solves the code and stuff like.
Yeah, it's true. It kind of shows like that's what they have to like. At the end of the day, if you're spending all day behind a desk, which I've worked desk jobs before, it just shit gets boring, and like it's that's why Freeman has his he paints those items, and
Yeah.
it's like they got to pass the time. But yeah, it foreshadows to where Presbo gains humanity and becomes a teacher. Um, the next scene, great landsman scene when he comes in and talks to Rawls.
Yeah.
And it shows Rawls' humanity too, because he's just like he spends all day working. He's like, I want to hear my sergeant talk about jerking off last night.
So I've
And
heard theories on this, right? I heard that like Landsman. I don't even know where I heard this. It might be a YouTube comment. I heard that like Landsman was like it wasn't from like one of the writers. I heard like a fan theory that Landsman was hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, you guys look like you froze up. I was
we're locked in.
It looked like you guys were intently listening. I was like I heard that like Landsman was like knew that Rawls was gay, and he knew that like how to engage him in the conversation was talking jerking off and stuff. I was like,
yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I need to explore that thought. I don't think I need to look that deep into it, but I don't think
maybe. I think it might just be. I always thought of it as like just dudes.
Yeah, just
talking,
regular talk. Yeah,
just guys talking about sex stories.
I don't think anybody knew, but if you listen to Rawls, I don't want to say it's every episode, but every other episode,
like sucker,
he said some crazy stuff.
No, if he lived in Harlem, it would be like, hey, yo, pause every second.
Yeah,
hey,
like
he
said some crazy stuff, like where it's like,
I'm inside your ass.
Like he said he got some crazy moments, like for sure.
But I also like how that whole thing. We'll get to that later on when I always loved how they never. That's not like a storyline. I always thought that was great. I you know what I mean? It's just like he's gay. Who cares?
It's a deeper meaning because it's like this hard ass cop.
Right.
He's this super rough major. He is spit in your face, kind of just filthy, rugged cop, And if they knew he was gay, some of that aura would definitely not probably be, especially back then, probably wouldn't be the same, kind of thing. He wouldn't have the same mystique, that same power, if they knew that.
Right.
And maybe there's a little parallel there too. Maybe like, Omar's gay. He gets to live openly gay and rob drug dealers. And Rawls is in law enforcement and he can't be openly gay.
Yeah. That's a great point, Jesse. It's almost showing like the police department are more backwards in that sense than like the people on the streets and that mentality, And you compare that to like the show like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where that sitcom with Andy Samberg, where the boss in that show is gay, and he admits that in the first episode, at least openly. But yeah, no, it's true. It makes there's even a line later on when Rawls says to Daniel, like, Daniel, like, when I thought you meant anything, I thought you meant a kiss.
He makes
that. You feel my tits. Like, come on, bro. Like,
like, who talks like that?
He got some moments where it's like, oh, okay, I got it. Got it.
Yeah,
That's
he
cool.
definitely
I got you.
foreshadows it
And
more.
they
I
come
got
off different than when McNulty and Bunk like joke about being
you.
gay.
Hmm.
Right.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah, so Landsman says that he's jerking off, and McNulty enters his mind, and McNulty's natural police, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he's great at his job, and Ross kind of tells him, "Well, tell your boy to finish up the detail and come back." So we
Yep.
do see some humanity here.
And that little scene right there, it's gonna play into the legendary scene we're about to touch on.
right.
But I took this down. Landsman said all of a fucking sudden, out of fucking nowhere, fucking detective, fucking Jimmy McNulty. He
Uh,
said
uh,
that like in that sentence, he said that word 5 times, 4 times.
Yeah.
okay, cool, cool.
So I thought that was a catch that I caught when I was rewatching. Like I never noticed how many times he said that word when he was talking to Rawls about McNulty.
See,
Yeah, no, of course. And well, it also shows like Landsman gets it too, because he says like Jimmy thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, but he's not wrong. He is the smartest guy in the
yeah,
room.
Yep,
He's has a clearance rate that's better than any other cop.
yep,
He's addicted to his own ego, but his obsession intelligence that makes him a good cop. He's somebody that is a pain in the ass to be with and work with, but at the same time he's extremely valuable.
yep.
He's the most valuable cop they have,
yeah,
He
and
said
Rawls gets
he
that.
he said 8 clearances. One of them was a decomposed floater that was Jane Doe for 3 weeks. So that means like McNulty he's top tier, and the fact that he told him 2 weeks. Well, it's not really up to McNulty to end the detail. He don't really have the power to be like, "Hey, y'all, we're stopping this detail on this target." That's not up to McNulty. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Ross kind of I don't know. That was kind of like an unrealistic ask, as if McNulty can say, "Hey, we're stopping this detail right now in 2 weeks." That's not he don't get to do that.
yeah,
Like
Well, Rawls also has like this humanity to him too. I think that's great about this scene is Rawls basically says, um, he shows that like he gets it. He's like, I don't like Jimmy personally, but he realizes his value, and he kind of cuts him a break. He's like, if they, I think it was more like tell him like in this situation, almost like McNulty, I feel like has this power because he basically started the case, right? Him by
yeah,
telling the judge. So I think he knows like McNulty has the judge's ear, and like if he tells him like, "Hey, this is okay," but Rawls shows like humanity to him there, and says like, "All right, you can," and shows Landsman looks out for his guys. Like we talked about him earlier, it could be a pain in the ass boss, but he respects his employees, especially when they provide him with good work. Um, cut to McNulty and Greg's walking. Oh, sorry, wait. This beforehand. Greg's see her home life, right? She lives in this comfortable life. Again, home. The third uh, parallels with homosexuality. Greg's and his her girlfriend are sitting on the couch, and she's studying for a test. And can you guys remember what exactly is the test? I kind of missed that of what she's
she's studying to
studying.
be a lawyer
Oh, right. She's
to
studying for a
pass the bar.
lawyer.
Take the test to
And
be a bar. Yeah,
yeah, she's like, this is tough. And they have a little banter about, don't put the marker on the couch. I feel like this episode is great because it shows like the home life of all these people and what they
yeah.
have. And it shows that she does have like a nice, comfortable life. At least at the beginning, until she kind of makes the same mistakes McNulty makes and later on, it shows like Greg's the beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's still a cop first though, because she gets suspicious of all these outgoing calls that her girlfriend makes. Um, so then the next scene, basically Daniel's telling Burrell like, "Hey, we need a wiretap. We need some like real information here, real resources." And it
Mm-hmm.
shows that like one great speaking of McNulty, like why I think he has power over this case is because Burrell says like Daniels mentions like McNulty says we need to wiretap.
Mm-hmm.
Basically saying like he trusts what McNulty has to say, and Burrell's
Yeah.
like, "Do you think it does?" He's like, "I think so. It needs something." So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like in a way he does have this power because
Over the case.
they all trust what he has to say because he's the one who knows about Barksdale, and Burrell's kind of caught in a bind here
Mm-hmm.
because he tries to pass it off earlier to the judge, and the judge is saying like it's not gonna work. We need more information here. And little subtle cue is that Burrell's playing putt putt, but it ends with him missing the hole. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
caught that too.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of symbolic of like he's not quite getting it in there, you know. Um, then we see Lester out in the field, you know, just silently waiting. He has D'Angelo's beeper number that he found from the raid in the previous episode. He's able to call them. Immediately hangs up. You know, it just shows good old Lester. He even has this like facial expression, like I still got it in me. You know.
Well, doesn't he do the Chinese voice too? You call the Chinese food place?
Oh,
Yeah,
that was
that's season 5.
Yeah.
Oh, but he didn't do it here. I thought.
No, that's when when he gets Marlowe's number from Carver.
Marlowe's. I thought
he does a few different voices in this show.
He does it, and then Carver does it in season 1. That might be what you think about, Jesse. That does happen in season 1. Okay. And then Herc is like, he was like, yeah, that's my Chinese. And then Herc was like, it sounded Korean. And then Carver was like, how the fuck would you know the difference?
Yeah, you're right.
That does happen in season 1. But yeah, Lester is season 5 when he calls Marlowe's number.
Yeah.
He's like, I want some of that pepper steak.
Yeah, that I remember that one.
Yeah.
So, no, here he just calls him and D'Angelo answers, but he immediately hangs up.
Yeah. And then D looks around, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jesse. So wouldn't that in itself spark some type of like how many people have D'Angelo's pager? Wouldn't that spark some type of like who's calling my phone and hanging up? Like, would that not make him suspicious or?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, back in the day, if you used to get beeped, you could get beeped the wrong number. You know.
Okay.
But also, it's just I don't know. I never like. I don't know. It's just. I think he just makes mistakes. Like I think it's by D'Angelo. He just kind of doesn't think things through.
Mm-hmm.
And to me that's happens. Especially with people like him, where he's young and he's dumb. He doesn't think the cops are onto him at this point. Really, or he doesn't think that they're cloning his beepers because they also saw in the previous episode that cops have no idea what they're doing. They're going into random houses. He figures like they don't know how to do this. They didn't think Lester Freamon would be behind them. And then we see McNulty. Great scene too because it's all filmed outside. Like you could hear all the background noise too. You see McNulty and Greggs are talking. And Greggs asks, "Who's No Hard Anthony?" And we tell a story about
the story of No
Hard Anthony, how he couldn't do the time, so he put a 44 Magnum against himself. Shot him, but woke up at the hospital
with a contact and a new name.
Different, contrast between him and Omar, whereas Omar would willingly do the time. And be the man in prison.
Sure, I think there was something telling about that too. Like, just because you're family, you're not always the same, right?
Yeah. Even though.
Go ahead, Zach.
I was gonna say it's a different type of story than you'd expect because a nickname like No Heart Anthony, you think like, wow, this guy's tough. He's got like no heart.
Right.
Like, oh, this guy, he's heartless, he's ruthless. Then you find out it's the opposite. Like everyone kind of makes fun of him in this situation.
And then like McNulty says too, talking about Omar, he said it's not the easiest trade robbing drug dealers. That's kind of speaking about just the contrast in who No Heart was and to who his brother is. His brother doesn't have any heart, like he's ruthless. So
Yeah, no, and so yeah, it's also just like Omar. Sorry, McNulty almost like respects him in a way. He's like robbing drug dealers. Wow, that's pretty tough. Sorry,
McNulty loves Omar. McNulty has
yeah. Oh yeah.
like a guy crush on Omar.
He
Yeah, that's
loves
his guy.
Omar. Yeah, he loves Bubbles. But so yeah, they're still talking, and the next thing we see, it's Mahone, right? I always get. I'm sorry. I always get the mistaken.
Polk.
No, fuck. Okay, Polk is on the staircase, and it shows a great contrast, right? He's fucking hammered at like 8 in the morning, and he has this thing of like because Mahone tells him earlier is like just fake an accident. You could even get money from the city under a lawsuit. So he gets the idea of like, well, I'm just gonna fall down the stairs.
And is considering it. He's legitly considering
Yeah,
tumbling down these. It had to be at least 15 stairs. Like I'm sitting here looking at the staircase, like it's at least 15 stairs.
yeah,
You got
oh
to
yeah.
try to tumble down, like
This guy's in his late 50s too. He's like, and it's a great job showing him wasted. The camera's kind of tilting around,
Yeah.
And then you just see McNulty. It's almost from his perspective because you see McNulty and Greg's walking in and they're talking about the case, which he knows nothing about. He does has no idea what they're talking about. It doesn't even matter to him.
No.
And they don't even really acknowledge him. They're just like, yeah, there's that drunken idiot that works with
Yeah,
us.
they just walk by.
They just walk. They don't even say hello. They're just like, yeah, that's that guy. Who cares? They have no idea he's plotting to commit fraud by intentionally falling down the stairs. That guy is such an asshole. And then you know what's great too in that scene too, like it goes into Daniel's talking. He waddles into the scene and he's hammered. And I don't know if you catch this, but Carver and Herc look at each other and they start cracking up. It's great like just acting while they're not even speaking because in the scene they're looking at each other like, oh my god, this guy is so fucking hammered. They can't believe what's happening, and he just sits down and he's not even listening to like he does a great job just playing a drunk guy who's like he's there but he's not there at all. And then they explain Daniels basically says like the concept of exhaustion of like how we work a wiretap, and it's a great explanation of how they do it, really methodical. It shows like I don't know how David Simon even knew this information. Like he did a lot of research.
Well, he's
but
a former cop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's Ed Burns who is he an executive producer or he's a big part of it. It's David Simon and Ed Burns.
I think he's one of the showrunners too.
Yeah, Ed Burns used to be a cop or a cop writer. I think David Simon was the cop reporter and Ed Burns was the cop, something like that.
They were both police. They were both in law enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And okay, that makes sense. Because the idea of exhaustion is basically we show a judge that we need a wiretap because every other method has produced a dead end. In other words, no witnesses are willing to flip. The PC that they've gotten isn't getting them anywhere. So they show they have no other recourse but to wiretap their pagers.
Yeah.
Great explanation for that. Yeah. I think, like it really, it's like very realistic of like, all right, well, this is what we have to do. And
awesome.
Daniel's is like, okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
And then when Lester speaks too, is very powerful. Like this is the first time we get a few words from him, and it's very powerful. Like he's cutting Herc off. He's telling him like, good, like pretty much like shut up. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the first time we get to see him really, other than him having the right number for D'Angelo's pager. When he calls him and D'Angelo picks up and Lester doesn't say anything. This is the first time we really get to see, and he brought them the picture. But this is the first time we get to see his voice and get to hear him and his impact in terms of when he's speaking. Like, and it's pretty powerful. Like, just the first time we really get to see him in cop form and really show his intellect for sure.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And McNulty's impressed because he found D'Angelo's number.
Yep.
And he's
Hmm.
explaining like I got that number off of a brick wall.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he basically validated himself to McNulty and Greg's by being like, you're not the only actual police here. Like I know what I'm doing too. Yeah, no, it really is a great. This episode really introduced who Lester is as a character.
Yep.
Um, so that's how they find basically the information they need to wiretap a pager. And now we get to one of my favorite scenes, and I gotta go off on this scene because
Do
some
you think? Yeah.
some idiot on the Wire Facebook page or whatever made a comment about how they don't like this scene because he thinks like all they say is the word fuck, and like I even responded to that guy, but then I was like, I'm gonna delete my comments because like, why even bother, right? Arguing with people on the internet. But um, the scene is brilliant.
It's
Brilliant.
unbelievably brilliant.
It's
Brilliant.
so brilliant, and people that don't understand it just like fuck off because here's the scene: is every other cop show. Well, first after that happens, McNulty basically asks Bunk about Freeman. He
Hmm.
explains like, no, Freeman's a real real police. So they go to this the house where the murder took place, D'Angelo's murder, right? And every other cop show would have had them like if this is like Law and Order or some shit, they would have had the cops like explain all this technical jargon, basically explain to the audience what they're finding out.
Hmm.
Right. Right.
But
Right. Right.
David Simon understands that's not how people talk. People don't speak in exposition dialogue. They don't be like, "Oh, this is what this means to each other." That's not how they would speak. They know McNulty and Bunk are already in sync with each other. They've done this 1,000 times.
Hmm.
They know what to do. They don't need to explain to each other what they're doing. They can just go about their business. And they Bunk basically shows all these pictures on the he throws the pictures on the ground to find out where she was killed on the floor. They have a picture of the floor. He shows he needs to find out where exactly on the ground she was shot. um McNulty needs to find out the angle from which they were shot.
Hmm.
Every word in this scene is fuck, and it's
Hmm.
brilliant because each fuck has a different meaning,
Hmm.
right? Whether it's surprise, whether it's frustration,
Yeah.
whether they're happy that they found out something, whether at times McNulty accidentally nicked himself with his
Fuck.
fuck,
Hmm.
and it's just every fuck has a different meaning behind it,
Right. Right.
and they find out exactly where the bullet came from. It came from the window. They find out how it happened. They even by pretending like he is the victim of the correct angle of which they would get shot.
Hmm.
He looks at the bullet holes in the back, showing that it gets shot through the mouth, but then goes through the backside. And they even find out that it goes to the fridge, and he uses kind of like a screwdriver to open up the casing from the fridge. They find out that it went through the window, and then they look in the back and find out exactly where from the outside they shot. And by standing from where they were able to shoot, they're able to look on the ground and find the bullet. And they do this, all of this information is explained to us, and we know exactly what's happening, and we could follow along with them as if we were detectives on the case. And but it's not explained through dialogue. And I honestly, it's one of the most brilliant scenes in the show. I love that scene
For
more.
sure.
Like it's just amazing, honestly. And it completely goes against the type of any other cop show. So
Oh,
I love that scene.
br-
Um, um, so yeah, okay. The next scene, right? They figure out what we're doing.
brilliant
Again,
scene.
Herc is frustrated because he's getting the shit detail. They Greg's tells him like, we're going to be chasing D'Angelo, but we're not actually going to be catching him because they want to find out exactly where he's going with the money. Um, I know we're running up on almost 2 hours, so um, okay. The next scene, McNulty finds he basically says, "Hey, I need to buy you a drink," and
Yeah.
Freeman says, "Just one." Like it shows,
Yeah.
like, no, yeah, let's talk. McNulty's genuinely curious as to what happened to Freeman.
Yeah.
And Freeman tells, and then they cut to the bar where Freeman tells him, he's like, it's basically like, I was the same way you were back in the day. When I was in my early 30s, I was just all about doing the work, and he found this prostitution ring that there was this scumbag politician like Clay Davis who was caught up in this ring. And basically the his boss told him to shut it down because this politician is involved, but he's like, fuck that, I'm going to get this I'm going to do the job, and
Yeah.
McNulty says, you could have done that without giving up that guy. He's like, well, yeah, but that's the point, is that you don't do that.
Right.
You have
Yeah.
to have a code.
That's the
And that
funny, yeah.
and it really foreshadows to later on.
Well, he said, he tells him, Jimmy, they're gonna ask you, where are you gonna want to be?
He said, "Trust me."
Where don't you
He
want
said,
to
"Trust me."
Yeah. Well, he said they asked him, where don't you want to end up? He said pawn shop, and he ended up in the pawn shop trying to give him like that. Oh, because we want you to land on your feet. He says, and trust me, it's gonna happen to you, and we see it happen. Rawls. So I want to say something real quick too, because I've read somewhere before that season 1 was a hood show, and then the reason why season 2 got moved to the docks was because they wanted a more wider audience, and they were like, "Oh no, that can't." But they had to have it planned from episode 1 or 2, because Landsman asked Jimmy, "Where don't you want to go?" in episode 1 or 2, and Jimmy says, "The dock,
The docks. Yeah.
the shipping, the boat." So then, in this episode, he's already telling him they're going to ask you, where don't you want to go? And then he lies to Rawls, and we find out Landsman is the one who told Rawls the boats. But it just shows you that The Wire was like, season 2 was already planned.
Yeah, no, I have this note because Lester mentioned when he's talking to McNulty, the guy was getting high in Locust Point. He mentions that in that scene exactly. When they're in the bar, he mentions Locust Point, which is the docks. That's the docks where a lot of them are from. So it's almost the way the writing was set up, just from what episode 1 of The Wire, the last episode, and all of the stuff in between. I don't think there's any way that they didn't know where they were going. The foreshadowing and the moments are just, they're too intricately placed and tied together. Like I think they knew. He probably knew from the jump. All right, each season is going to be a different theme, and we'll have some of the same characters.
Right.
Like that's the only way. There's no way he couldn't have foreshadowed. There's no way. It's just no way. It's too well written. It's too many ties and connections and nuggets.
Season 1 was cops and robbers. Season 2 is the docks. Season 3 is politics. Season 4 is the school system. Season 5 is the media.
Yeah. Showing all the institutions and like how they they're all connected in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
They all
Season 1 is the only one that's where it's plain bank cops and robbers. Yeah.
And all the characters, it's they stay throughout the whole show. You know what I mean? So it's great too, because McNulty knows this, and he tells him, like, because I think that scene happened earlier on in the previous episode where Landsman says, like, where don't you want to go? And he says the docks.
I think that might be the first episode. I think
I think that was the first episode.
I think it was, yeah.
And then so he's like, well, I already when Freeman tells him, like, don't tell him where you want to go.
Yeah,
he's like, well, too late now. they already know. And it just shows, like, Yeah, it really is a parallel. Freeman was basically fucked over for going against the code, right? Like, and it shows too the police where their priorities are. It's
Yeah.
they're going to protect one of their politicians that is on their side, even if he is a criminal. Like, it shows the hypocrisy of the whole institution.
Right.
Um, Great Lester Freeman scene. And then the last scene of this episode is Greg's back with her girlfriend in their apartment, and they're hanging out, and they get a knock on the door from good old wasted Jimmy McNulty, who basically, it's funny that he just like he's never been to her apartment before, but he just like shows up because that's kind of how he is. He just shows up at people's houses. It shows he's very presumptuous as a character. He thinks he could just go wherever he wants all the time. Um, he says whatever he wants, so he's like, "Yeah, why not? I'll just stop at her apartment at like 9 at night too." Just
Yeah.
like very. He's drunk, and you get the sense that he's kind of like hitting on her.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
doesn't he doesn't realize that her girlfriend is right there, and he's kind of confused too, because it shows like he just appreciates the camaraderie, and
Hmm.
he's I think I took it in a way he's afraid of what might happen to him. He saw Lester explained what happened to him, and he's like kind of paranoid. He's like, I don't want to wind up working some shit job for the rest of my life because of this.
Hmm.
And it shows that he was friends with Kima in the earlier on, so he's like,
Yeah.
I think he wanted somebody to just talk about this with,
Yeah.
but
Well,
she wasn't available.
and Kima says, and she goes, "Who was that?" And he said, "Just somebody lonely." And so
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kima kind of knows he was just being lonely. So it's funny too. Kima could have got mad, right? Like, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing, Jimmy?"
Right.
Come
Right.
on.
yeah,
It would have been justified too.
I didn't. Is it only 9 at night? I got a feeling it was later,
yeah. It
but
was pretty late. I mean, I just said 9 because it was dark out, but it could have
Oh,
been
okay.
late.
I got a feeling like it was like midnight because it's
Maybe.
after the bar
Damn.
shift.
Oh
So
yeah, true. It's he's already been at the bar for several hours.
yeah. So he was like, but Kima's like, yeah, just somebody lonely. Like she didn't like really like think much of it, right? Which was kind of showed like their friendship too, because
Yeah.
and the girlfriend didn't get jealous. Like
Right.
Yeah,
somebody
Yeah.
would
And she's the one that answered
So
the door.
it kind of showed that they have one of the healthiest relationships, right?
right.
Yeah.
On the
Yeah,
show.
definitely.
So yeah, but it was funny because I was like, when I watched it, even on the rewatch, I was like, does Kima get pissed at this? And she's like, nah, it's just some lonely guy. And
Yeah. It's just McNulty.
And
Um,
they have like a healthy relationship too. It's one of her and Daniel's relationship so far. We've only seen as like the real healthy relationship.
relationships.
yeah,
Yeah, and also too, just this ending of the episode in comparison to the other ones. Like every episode has a different cliffhanger kind of thing. Like this was not really leaving us with this. We don't know what to expect for episode 5. It's like, okay, ends in okay, Kima and her girlfriend and McNulty. Like you don't really know. Like okay, it's a different. It's not ended on a murder. It's not ended on. It's like a different. Every episode has a different ending to it. Like as we're rewatching this and like breaking down these elements, it's like, dang,
well,
this show is so
you can kind
man,
of get,
it's
you can kind of
phenomenal.
think that this episode's more of McNulty's character,
Yeah.
right? Bringing Bubbles to the game, not being judgmental, but the wife kind of tearing him a new one,
Yeah,
and we get into McNulty's loneliness, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't get the kids, and it ends with just a lonely
with
guy.
McNulty. That's
So
a
now
good. That's a good way to look at it. McNulty episode.
Yeah, it was ambiguous. It was more character driven this episode than plot driven, which I like. It kind of slowed down the investigation. It's like, let's kind of focus more.
Yeah.
This episode was like, let's focus more on the characters and introducing their backstories and what they have to say about this. And
But I'm sorry. I think this is my favorite episode from so far. So far.
Okay.
it's a great episode. And
is.
there's so many iconic scenes. The fuck scene, the the soccer scene, the basketball scene.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's a real, even everyone kind of has a moment where they develop as a character, and you sympathize with people that previously you had hated, like Herc or even Landsman.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kind of like the ambiguous ending, kind of like the last episode where it ended with McNulty just questioning like where he got himself into. This one kind of shows this the contrast between McNulty's life, how you see he's just living by himself on a in kind of a shitty apartment, whereas Greg's and her wife kind of have this like intimate, her girlfriend, they have this intimate relationship so far, you know.
Yeah.
And you're right, she doesn't. It's like it shows like Kima's girlfriend trusts her that it's just some guy from work. And like you said, you really do sympathize with Jimmy a lot here because he's worried about his career
Yeah.
and he doesn't have his home life going well for him. So yeah, you're right. It's a great McNulty episode.
Good stuff. Well, Jack, man, thank you for narrating, man. I'll let you all take us out. Great job. 10 out of 10. Phenomenal episode, man. Phenomenal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Got,
guys.
all right, guys. Got to see some real acting chops here.
Yeah,
In this episode.
definitely. Shout out to Lawrence Gilliard, the actor who played Bodie, Dominic West. All of them did a fantastic job, in my opinion, with this one. Real
Yep.
character-driven episode.
All right, guys. So until next time. Anybody else got anything to say? Yeah.
Always a pleasure, folks.
Thank you all.
Peace.
See you next week.